I want to talk in a little bit more detail on your public story. Hopefully you had the opportunity to read the short article by Marshall Ganz. And that article, if it's not apparent to you, is written by a guy who's at the Kennedy School at Harvard. But before he did that, he was an amazing, prolific, renowned organizer in California, especially with migrant and the fruit and vegetable pickers that were there, and kind of helped them organize for better rights and equality and better working conditions. And so this whole idea of your public story comes from an organizing perspective. But when you are designing your life, or you are professing an idea, and I've done both, I really don't think that there's a big difference between the techniques in these things. You know, as we talk, when you go and you start approaching alumni about ideas that you have for your course of study, it's very important that they understand your intention and what you're about, so that they can provide the advice that you're looking for. So I think that the contents here are very similar. If you read the whole article and you saw how this goes together with a story of us, which is how we have come together, or a story of now, which is creating urgency on how somebody can join us, I think those are three very big pieces as well. Juan and I and Caroline were talking about the difference between innovation and entrepreneurship earlier on. And if you're creating a company, or if you can consider yourself as a brand, what you want to do is once you have your idea and you come together with other people, you want to talk about why you have come together and why this idea or this company or this venture is important. And then to take that to another level, why it is crucial so that other people will join you. So a story of self, this is why I was called, a story of us, and a story of now. And so I have been talking to you throughout the semester about your stories, and first of all, understanding your stories, right, so that you get them, and then being able to convey them. And so as you read the chapter, as you read through Ganz' article, I'm hoping that you recognized quite a few things, right, that you have heard in this class, and that are the things that I would like you to take away. The stories allow us to express our values not as abstract principles, some, others, people, but as the lived experience. They're specific. Values, no. Creativity, family, honesty, those are specific values. And if you tell them correctly, they evoke a particular time, place, setting, mood, color, sound, texture, taste, all of those people, all those things that are on the sides of the smiley faces that we brought together, so that you can connect and engage others. And the more you're able to connect, the more powerful your story will be, right? When you watch a good TV show and the script is awesome, or there's no plot, and you can't connect, it's pretty boring. But when there's a flawed character or somebody that you relate to, or an experience that you've gone through, even if it's painfully hard to watch, right? If you watch Schitt's Creek or The Office, and you're watching that stuff, and it's funny and it's painful at the same time. Larry David's show too, right? There's a connection there. But I've also told you that it's sometimes hard to overcome this perception that you shouldn't be talking about yourself, that your story doesn't matter, but it really does. Right? It really does. Because if something is important to you, a candidate, a cause, a movement, I don't necessarily want you to tell me about somebody else. I want you to tell me about why it's important to you, because I'm talking to you. That's the direct connection that we're going to have. And if you are going to tell your story or ask people to listen to you, you have a responsibility to give an account of who you are. And as I've told you that, you know, you have to be very clear about your intentions, because if you do not author and dictate your public story, others will, and they may not tell it the way that you like. Right? So it's up to you to tell people what you want them to know about you. Otherwise, it's very easy to judge them or judge you on the way you look, on a story you told, who you're with, where you're from, what your religion is. People will develop their own narrative if you do not tell them otherwise. So I also know that in an applied way, when we're putting the major together, one of the things that people in the business world and in the entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem, named as one of the key traits. It was for students to be able to interact and communicate effectively about who they are and what their intentions are. You will be shocked at your ability to be able to do, if you are able to do this, how that will set you apart. And so the plot of your story has a number of components. There's a challenge that you have faced, there's a choice that you have made, and there is an outcome. This is quite, if you think about it, quite familiar, right? The young girl lived with a woman and wicked stepsisters who treated her absolutely awfully, and it was miserable. But she went to the ball and the glass slipper fit, and she had a big choice to make. Whether she was going to get the prince to kiss her. And the outcome was that the prince kissed her, right by midnight. Right? It's a pretty compelling story, right? My parents are running money for the Navarro cartel, and they moved to a remote part of Missouri so that they won't get caught. And every show is a challenge they have to overcome so that somebody in their family does not get killed, right? If you watch Ozark, every show, flight attendant, every single show has a challenge, a choice, and an outcome. And the more relatable the character is, the more engaged you are in it. But in every case, right, it relies on the awareness that you have of the experiences you've had, your time journal, and your ability to be able to convey those experiences. Your story, my map, soon to be your life and your work view. It's based on your experience. So if you have awareness and you can share, you have the ability to connect, right? And so it's not just saying my challenge was. You have to develop it and make it about you. Why did you feel it was a challenge? Right? I had a challenge, but one of my challenges freshman year was math class. Why was that a challenge for you? Did you not get math? Because math's easy for me. It's like, no, it was 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm actually really good at math. I just didn't go, right? Why was it a challenge for you? Why was it your challenge? You're defining this for you. And then the choices that you make, I either had to get up earlier, or I had to find somebody who can give me the notes, or I had to go meet with Dr. Piros in the math house to get extra help. What are the choices that you make? Why did you make the one that you did? I was having a hard time keeping track of my assignments, and I was missing things. So I had a number of choices. I could look at Moodle every single day. I could write them all down in a notebook. I could put together a whiteboard above my computer and write them all down. So every time I sat down, I was thinking, well, what are your choices and what did you make and why? And then how did the outcome feel? I started doing better in class. I started being on time. I started planning ahead for my assignments so I wasn't doing them all at the last minute, having to decide whether to go out and have fun with my friends or to do my work. It was easier for me to manage, right? What did it teach you? If I know in advance what I have to do, I'm more likely to do it. If I don't know what I'm supposed to do until the last minute, I'm probably going to do it at the last minute. What do you want us to learn from that? All those things we talk about, if you remember my triangle stick figures that were all colored in that individual language, owning it, creating not distance, but closeness with your language. What kind of questions you have, or what experiences have you had telling stories? Mimic this. What kind of challenges, choices, and outcomes have you seen? Maybe, I don't know how much TV you're watching in the dorms. It's a lot easier online than it was trying to rig up an antenna when I was doing it. Or movie. Okay. There's a number of things, if you're having trouble with this, and this happens to me too. I'm trying to come up with a story or a way to frame something. And I've asked, and I'm going to ask you to do it in a couple of minutes. Hey, tell me a story about a challenge, choice, and outcome. Or the question that I've already asked you, where do those values come from? Tell me a story about your parents or your friends or growing up where you did that led to those values or those views. And sometimes you just need a prompt, right? So I've provided, there's a number of them in the article. And these are the key ones from each section. So if you're like, hey, I have to think of this story, I have to think of a memory, and you're thinking in these abstract terms, if I ask you a specific question, what memories do you have as a child that link to the people, places, and events that you value? And then if you just write down some words, that sometimes will help you break through the logic. List every job, class, project you've ever been involved with and connected to these values or not. Had a lot of jobs. My favorite job to this day is working at the corner deli in Newark, Delaware when I was an undergraduate. Loved it. Loved it. It was the most fun job I've ever had. Marginal responsibility, a lot of fun, great food. What are some moments that you recall when you felt excluded, put down, powerless, courageous, recognized, or inspired? Remember, challenges are supposed to be challenging. So these aren't all going to be really visible, happy questions, right? And as we talk about authenticity and vulnerability, a lot of time, and a number of you have shared these things, and I do appreciate that, because when you share things that are that vulnerable and that authentic, they are by definition about you, which makes them by definition easier for you to connect with somebody else, right? Who in your life inspired you to this calling or encouraged you to become active the way that you have? Right, so if I were to ask, why are you interested in science? Why are you interested in drawing? Right? There's an answer there. Right? There's somebody or some reason that introduced you to those things. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do now is I'm going to ask you, we'll just do it sitting right here, Sydney and Alex and Aaron, you'll pull out a piece of your notebook paper and you can consider this. I want you to look at the values and the lessons you've identified from your work and your life view. So again, this is coming from a little bit more abstract. This is coming from your work and your life view. If you have a value that was not demonstrated or not mentioned in your work and your life view and you want to talk about it, maybe I didn't get at it in the questions that I was asking, that's fine. Where do those values come from? And then I want you to think of a story or vignette that will help connect your journey to what you have learned and to your audience. Some of you may have already done this. So if you want to take an opportunity to modify a story you've already told us, feel free to do that. But then I want you to frame it as an introduction of you, your intentions, and what you stand for in your audience. So if I were to do that, and I wanted to first tell you something about myself and who I am. My name is Bill. I'm a physical therapist. I'm getting my master's degree in health policy administration. That was actually true. Right? I finished it. I was hoping to get back to school. What are the key values I've identified from your work and your life views? Service, lifelong learning, and health and beauty. Right? Not at all values that should surprise you from somebody who became a physical therapist as an undergrad. Right? Summarize a story of where these values come from. I'm from Ithaca, New York, where my parents were public school teachers and great role models for serving and helping people. I always remember tagging along with my dad to work pancake breakfasts and do small building and repairs at a camp for kids with speech and hearing challenges. My mom was always organizing and going to meetings to make things better for our schools. And then what I'm going to ask you to do ultimately is attach this introduction to your mind maps. That's not hard, right? And so you can very easily say, my mind map activities were, and you can rattle off, walking my dog, going to the back, going to breakfast with friends. And that will lead you into the presentation of your mind maps that I'm going to ask you to present, record and present on Saturday. Okay? So we have time in class right now to put this part together and to share it. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to be able to answer. I'm going to go back here. Quick poll. Which slide would be more helpful for you to do this? This one or my example? All right. So keep in mind, if you're looking at the example, and those of you that are beaming in, I didn't put something specifically under number one, but that is answered in number two. Introduce yourself, let you know where you're from and where you stand for. So I don't have something here, but notice I've introduced myself and where I come from in other places in the process, right? So don't be confused. You still have to address this. Okay? Okay, I'll give you a few minutes to work on that, write it down or type it, and we'll share a few of them. Sydney, Alex, Aaron, you good? You still there? How y'all making out? Everybody all set? Got it all done? Go ahead and put the prompt questions back up. Give me another minute. Somebody wants to make the case one more time, but. Finish up. Okay, what I would like to do before we tee these up in front of the big groups, what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to break you into small groups. Alex, Aaron, and Cindy, I'm going to put you into a breakout room so you guys will be able to interact and talk with each other. And then why don't we do 3, so you can just spin your desks right where they are, so don't get closer in case somebody gets mad. Of course, I just broke the barrier right there. Juan and Caroline, Patty and Alejandro, Ethan, and then Ellis, you just kind of spin around. And what I want you to do is kind of give your story, give your introduction. And what I would like the person who's hearing the introduction is to be mindful. Have they summarized their values? Or if they set a specific value, I ask you, well, what do they stand for? What do they look at the value? You should be able to tell me 1 or 2 things. Was there a general introduction or something that said something about where they're from? It doesn't need to be your hometown. It could be Campion, right? It could be something about where you're from and what you're about. Did they use personal language like I? And did they use words and phrases to create a shared experience with you? We've talked about those things, right? Were they using direct, vivid language to describe person, place, and thing, A-I-O-U? That's the feedback that I would like you to be able to give. So about 60 seconds with the story, about another minute or so on the feedback. Those of you that are in pairs have a little bit more time because there's a couple of triplets. Aaron, Sydney, and Alice, give me a thumbs up that you understand what we're doing, and I'll put you in a group. Okay. Good chance you'll see me too. All right, you guys can spin and let's get to it. Don't get too close. If somebody walks in, I don't want to lose my job. And I don't want somebody to get sick. Sorry about that. That was very selfish.
high school. I decided to switch out she's disappointed. That is fantastic. I didn't want to do it all.
Okay, who's going?
So basically, since I was looking at it, started going to each of all this. Never give up. Okay, so you get ready, and if you're not doing the second person should be getting ready to flip.
What's Aaron value? What else? I think friendship was one, Aaron. Okay. Where's he from? What part of Chicago? Let's see what people tell us. Countryside. Is that what you call it there? Okay. Oh, it is in the country. Okay. What words and phrases? How did Aaron use language? Yep. Grandmother cooked. You should go. Cook for the whole neighborhood. For everyone. And what was Aaron's engagement in that whole endeavor? So what did Aaron do? It was helping. So he was engaged. Okay, have the other two go. Thank you.
spent the later one on the Yeah, I don't hear it show up. So I don't find it on my computer.
Usually I just want to reset.
I'm involved.
All right, well, if you're gonna say crazy stuff, tell us why. Give us an example.
Oh, go left and then up and then left again.
Oh.
That's crazy. That's good. That's a good detail to have. That was an awesome piece at the end, Alex, where you tied all that together, as to why that was important to you. You learned that was great. What does Alex value? Okay. Anything else, Sydney? What else is it about? Okay, I would agree with that. All right, Sydney, what do you have? Tell us your story.
Oh,
Oh, okay, no, that's good. That's good. I'm sorry I jumped in late. No, I appreciate it. I just want to make sure that we got it. Sorry I missed it. Okay, is everybody good? Can we get back together? Okay. Sydney, give me a thumbs up that you can hear us. Thank you. Caroline, what's bond's value? Say the first thing again, I'm sorry. Happiness and helping others. Okay, great. Tell me some vivid language that he used in his story that connected him to you.
Like he talks about like his grandfather and like how he like made himself and like that's kind of similar to like my dad, because my dad started some business.
So I want to point out something that you just did, that is outstanding feedback technique. So not only did you answer the question, what language did he use to relate to me? And you said that, talk about his grandfather, but you also said why it related to you, right? Because you had a similar experience with your grandfather as well, right? So if somebody can say, yeah, you use this language, it might be being nice to you, right? We're all pretty nice. But if you can provide that level of detail and show and say how it connected with you, you are giving the person who is providing you the written or the spoken material some valuable feedback. Right, you're providing that detail. Remember, feedback is a two-way street. You want that detail and that vivid experience conveyed to you, but as a reviewer, if you give that back, that's high level stuff. So thank you for doing that. Very good. Ethan, what does Hadi value?
He talked about how he values helping others, like wants to be a family man and always like to work his hardest. So he learned that from his parents who moved to the US at like a young age, and they kind of, use those same values to get where they are today. So
Okay.
yeah, that's a big part.
Okay. Alex, since I know you have great sound and I missed it, what does Sydney value?
She values knowing right from wrong.
Okay, what else? Aaron, you can help them if you'd like, since you both saw it.
She valued family, which was
Okay. And what language did Sydney use to connect with you as she told her story?
She was kind of explaining about how she was raised and brought up, like how her mother always taught her right from wrong.
Is there a time, Aaron or Alex, that she referred to that really crystallized that for her, that she really knew right from wrong? It may have been a time that she did something wrong and needed to know the importance of not doing that again. What was the story she told?
one of her stories was talking about why she chose her major and how it's important to her key of life.
Okay. Okay. So her challenge may be, as we develop this, what to pick and how it attaches. And it sounds like she did attach her choice of a major to what she told you her values were. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yes.
I would agree, because you said that, so that was good. Okay, thank you for the online folks for doing that. Who wants to share a story? Who heard an awesome story that we all need to hear as an example of one of these? Who heard an awesome story? Evan, are you nodding your head that they told you an awful story? Who told a great story? Who thinks they told a great story? Or even a good one? Who in this group told an awesome story?
I think we all told great
Yeah,
stories.
we were all unique in that way.
Wow. That's awesome. All right. Then Isabella, share yours, please.
Oh, I just said,
Anybody who can give and stay on message that well must have a great story. So speak up, please, so the folks can hear you.
I just said that, so my mom moved here when she was like in her 20s, because she was born in Colombia. So like she's taught me to like never give up on your dreams. And she's worked like really hard, and she's such like a dedicated, like human being who just wants like the best for others. And like often she puts others before herself. So I thought that's like something that I admire from her. I also like remember when I was younger and I'd like go to her work, and I would just hear like such great things from like her coworkers on like her work ethic and just her character. So that's something again that I value. My dad, so he started working at like such a young age, like in his teens, because like he grew up not like in a, I don't know. Okay, so yeah, so he's worked like all his life, and it wasn't until like a couple of years ago when he decided to retire. And so I guess like leading up to all of this, my parents just like want the best for me, and I'm someone who like wants to work and like get a job, but because of like all their hard work that they've, like accumulated throughout their lives, they say that they have me covered and that like I should just focus on my education rather than like, get distracted. Yeah.
Okay. What does Isabella value?
She values family and character,
How do you know?
because she said that in her story, and I'm also in her group.
Okay. Isabella, I would agree with that. I didn't specifically hear you say it, but I believe it. And you told a story that conveys that. What I would like you to do is I would like you to go back with that, and I would like you to make it simpler. Right? So I don't want to say every story has to look exactly like mine. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that the longer you get and the more material that's there, the more opportunity that the key points that you want to convey can get lost. So I would say a direct statement when you talk about who you are and say very specifically what your values are, because you described why in a lot of detail. So there's no question in my mind that all of those things that you have, you believe. And then I would ask you to capture one of those stories to be able to characterize where you got it. So if you wanted to say, I remember going with my mom to work and having everybody talk about how she was, right? And that's it. I mean, that's very simple. This is a little bit different. When I ask you to tell your public story, I will ask for a longer version of what you just did. But remember, this is an introduction, a quick introduction to yourself. Or excuse me, to your mind map or to somebody that you're going to meet, right? So you've got the material, you've got great material. The only, I would not give this as a criticism if it was for a different assignment, like if it was for a different thing. But for what you need to do for your mind map, if you can get that to about 20 or 25 seconds, perfect. All right. So that's, and you can put it together the way you want. All right. Make sense? And that will happen a lot. Very seldom. It happens sometimes, and I've said this to a few of you. Very seldom when you go through an expansive exercise like this, will you be too small and have to get bigger. Very often you will be bigger and have to get a little bit smaller, or tie it up, or shorten it, or condense. Right? I just submitted a paper to a guy that I think is pretty smart and gave me feedback. You need to pull these pieces together, you need to tighten these up a little bit. Right? And so what he was telling me was that 4 paragraphs is too long. Talk about these examples. I need to get them. All right. Okay, who else has got one to share? Okay, Carson.
Okay, I'm sure.
They're all pretty great, which means yours is too.
So my story is when I was in my sophomore year of high school at Leeds High School, which is in Raleigh. I decided to switch out of my pre-calc class because I didn't feel like I was ready for it. And my mom, Laura, was upset and disappointed that I had like dropped the class. She's like, "Why would you do that?" So she ended up enrolling me in a summer class at Enloe High School, which was 30-something minutes away, and I had to be there at like 6:15 in the morning for like 6 weeks over summer. And so I ended up passing that, and then going back to school, taking calc, failing it, going back to pre-calc, and coming here as a freshman after a senior year, and then taking calc again, and then getting a B in the class, which I was really excited about. And basically, my mentality wasn't there. Like I really just didn't want to take the class, and that probably drove me down to a deeper hole, not enabling me to get a good grade the first time.
Okay. What do you value?
I value family, never giving up, and always doing everything with a
Okay.
positive attitude.
So if you lead with, my name is Carson, I went to the high school in Raleigh, and those are your values, you will absolutely rock solid convince me of that if you then tell me a shorter version of that story. So again, if we do it, when we do your public story, Nutri Challenge Choice and Outcome, and you want to talk about that, that's great. But I would talk about, could you tighten that up to 15 seconds and say something along the lines of, I dropped out of calculus, my mom taught me this value by enrolling me in this class that I had to take, like just making it really quick, right? Because that will show, again, because of your, both of you, because of your stories, if I had to guess in a short answer exam what your values were, I'd be pretty close because your stories convey that really nice, which sometimes is the hard part. Is there anybody else who would like to go? Keep in mind, Abby, and I have a mental note that the next time we do this, your story is probably going to be great too, and I'll get to it. But you were the one person who spoke last time in that group, so thank you. Okay. So let's do this. Was that useful? This is more how I would like if we were all together, we'd be doing this a lot more. So, and again, the people online, I appreciate you being able to jump into a breakout room and be able to share the way you did. So thank you. I was glad to be able to see a couple of those. Okay, so your mind maps activity is due Saturday night at midnight. Let me do this. Well, this is what I'd like from you. I'll give you a few days now to be able to put this together. When you get into the portal on Moodle for this assignment, there's an opportunity for you to attach files. You've done it. You've written stuff for me and in Moodle you've had to attach it. So what I would like you to attach is your good time journals. If you have those on a piece of notebook paper and you didn't use the handout spiffy thing that I gave you, that's totally cool. Don't redo it. Just scan your notebook, sheets of your notebook paper and attach them, right? And they should have the little dials on them. They should somehow tell how much engagement and energy that you used. I would also like each of your 3 mind maps downloaded. If you want to create one PDF that has a bunch of pages, that's great. If you want to give like 6 different pieces of paper, that's fine too, however you want to do it. And I would like you to upload those to Moodle. The next thing I'm going to have you do, I want you to present your mind maps. Right, and I'm going to take you through the criteria here in a second and post it for a week, but I want to show you how this is all set up on Moodle. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. You can go to Zoom, share your screen, and just record it to the cloud. And then it'll give you, when you go to recordings, it'll give you a file that you can download. What I would suggest is that you do what I do with that, and you upload it to YouTube, and then just post a link in Moodle. You can go live on YouTube. You want to just record it. If you want to hold up your maps, that's fine because I'll have copies of them. Right? So that's totally fine if you want to do that. Don't worry about that. I've had some students put all the documents in a PowerPoint presentation and go on Zoom and just share the PowerPoint like I do in class and just talk. I don't have to see you necessarily. If you do that in Zoom, I would see you for a quarter, but just go through the PowerPoint. However you want to do it, and record it, that's great. It should be, 3 to 4 minutes, shouldn't be huge, right? Just going through maybe 5 minutes, going through each of these things. And post it. Make sure when you post something on YouTube, and I know a number of you remind me, because I forget this every now and again, it has to be public for me to see it, right? Or you have to do, so there's private, public, and then there's that other one that if you give somebody a link, they can get out of that, that's fine too. If you don't want to make it public, that's fine. Just make sure that I can see it when we can use it. What I want to do now go to I want to show you where all this stuff is on Moodle. So that you have a good sense of, and you have all of the resources. Okay, so this is our course Moodle page. If you scroll down to this week, there are a number of things. Number one, there is the actual presentation in the Moodle guide. So if you click on that, that's how you go ahead and upload your documents. There is also the presentation criteria. So if you look at this Excel document, this is the criteria. Introduce yourself, your values and intentions. You just did this, right? That's a point. Start with that. If you attach your good time journal completed, that's a point before you even start recording anything, right? Then, for each of your maps, they might have different titles, but one was supposed to be from engagement, one was supposed to be from energy, and one was supposed to be from flow. All I want you to do, describe the keyword in the center circle, present your 4 or 5 keywords around the outside, and what is your role description or your headline? Right, that's it. That's it. You want to say something else about it or what it makes you feel like, that's great. But I'm gonna have you do that for all 3 of your maps. Okay? Then, when you're done with that, I'm going to ask you how these roles reflect your work view, how these roles reflect your life view, and then I just, you get a half a point for keeping a detailed journal. Right? What I don't want, I don't want this to be about, I don't want this to be a real issue for people in terms of the recording. So, I mean, you're all more savvy than I am on a lot of this stuff and being able to do a recording. If you have an issue with this, what I would suggest is deciding today or tomorrow morning how you might want to do this. And if you have a question or if it doesn't look like it's going to work, email me and I'm happy to jump online with you and bring you through it. Right? I'm marginally available on Saturday night. Right? If you're putting this together and you're running into trouble, my tech support skills may or may not be available on Saturday night, but I will try. How many people think, I mean, do you think you can do this? Do you think you can upload these things together? There's a number of ways you can record it. Okay. All right. When we've done this in the past, we've all sat around a big table and everybody's done presentations in front of the class, and obviously because of the way things are set up this semester, we can't do that. Right? So I would like you to be able to put these together and share them, and you know what? You'll have them too. Right? That's the other thing, that you'll have them. Right. What kind of questions do you have? On the assignment? On what's due? Right? You see on Moodle where all those things are. Copies of that, get your questions. Copies of the worksheets that we have been doing. Those we started those last week, so those are under last week's module. So if you need to get at those to kind of work on your notes, you can do that. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so for introducing yourself with your values, do you also want us to put a story with that, which we just did, or do you want us to skip the story?
That's right. No, I want you to be able to, so in that assignment that we did so Carson's question was, for the story, do you want us to just introduce ourselves, or excuse me, for the introduction, do you want us to just introduce ourselves or tell the story? I would like you to just boil down your story so that you can give it in 20 seconds. And in that case, I would refer you to my example with my dad. Like I didn't give you the details about the speech and hearing clinic and the pond and the trees and the birds and all that stuff, but you knew I would tag along with my dad, just like you would to see your mom, right? I would tag along with my dad. I kind of saw this being done, modeled for me. My mom was kind of that term is shit disturber, in terms of like community organizing and movements, right? So That's where they came from, very clearly. All right? Okay, nice work today. Thanks, everybody online. If you have any questions, email me. I'm happy to jump on with you. Good luck this weekend. We get into the Odyssey maps and we continue with the stories next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dr. Lonnie.
Gave you back the 2 minutes I took from you last week. All evens out.